Stop it! Goodbye!
One tree stands,
Get
another
it
falls.
down! Good work!
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn. And today, folks, going to be covering some more Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory, because I'm going to talk about missions within the 40k universe, if you will, that would be essentially that you'd want to use for your Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory campaign. And there's going to be various different mission types, and realistically, they're not very dissimilar from what you'd have in Dungeons and Dragons. You'd actually have very similar missions within Dungeons and Dragons. Now, with that being said, there is going to be a little bit of variation here, and mostly it's got to do with technology, different types of objectives, because essentially the Imperium's a military, so there's more military bases here than there would be with Dungeons and Dragons. But either ways, let's get into it. And the first one is the assault type mission. Assaulting a fortified location, assaulting a trench, assaulting maybe an armor company, or assaulting a repair depot. Maybe essentially it's a raid, more or less. Try and snatch up weapons, equipment, things of that nature. The next one here, I would say, is also the defense, which would be pretty much the exact opposite from assault. You're defending a location, you're defending a trench. Maybe you're defending a fuel depot, or you're defending an encampment. Could be defending a set of crossroads. That's important for Imperial armor groups to move through if you're playing as Imperials or even as Orcs, for what it really matters, because crossroads as a military strategic asset always really matters, especially in the case of Warhammer 40k, where you still have land-based vehicles such as tracked and wheeled vehicles. I wouldn't say not so much with skimmers, but skimmers can even move faster across roads. So that's kind of something to really think about. Now, I would say a variation of the defense is the protect or transport type mission, where maybe your group is being tasked with transporting goods from one place to another, supplies, if you will, or protecting and transporting a high-value target. May it be an Inquisitor or some kind of Imperial commander. Could be an Orc commander, for what it matters. Maybe you're working as the personal bodyguard for an Orc war boss, and you got to move him to the front line. So that could be something that you're going to have to do within your Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory campaign. The next one would be the Assassination. Obviously, that kind of speaks for itself. You're trying to assassinate an HVT, and it's pretty much, that's realistically all it is. Of course, there's also destroy. It might be something as capture a fuel depot and destroy it. Capture a supply point, destroy any supplies that you find, destroy any communications equipment, things of that nature. So destroy is going to be another one, and this is going to be kind of one of those where you're assaulting a defended location, more than likely, because it's going to be something important for, per se, a war effort. And then you're going to destroy something that is there that is vital to the war effort for your opposing force. The next one is Reconnaissance. If you're doing something with Space Marine Scouts, or maybe some kind of recon team within the Imperial Guard, maybe your Orc Commandos, doesn't really matter. Every race within Warhammer 40k has their own versions of Scouts. Tau call them Pathfinders. I'm not really sure what the Eldar call them. But essentially, reconnaissance missions, and that's going to be used to collect vital intel on enemy locations, enemy strong points, as well as enemy supply points. Now, another flip side of this, kind of a variant, if you will, is more of the investigative mission, or the investigate type mission, where it's more of a mystery. And that's probably going to be more geared towards if you're doing like an Inquisitor type campaign, where you're essentially doing a murder mystery, if you will, trying to figure out who killed the maid with the wrench in the library, and everybody knows it was Colonel Mustard. But anyway. Now, of course, there's the Activate quest, and I would say this is going to be something that you might have in Dungeons & Dragons, but you're probably more often going to have with Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory. And that's just because computers are a thing within Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory. It could be activate a generator, could be activate a computer, could be activate a door so that way units can move through the area. Especially on a Space Hulk, you're going to probably do a lot of activating type stuff on a Space Hulk if you decide to do your campaign or a series of missions within a Space Hulk or even some type of manufactorium or whatever where you have to move through a factory. And honestly, activating switches and levers and etc., that's probably one of the most common missions you get within, like, say, Dark Tide, which is kind of why I had that little snippet of Dark Tide beginning at the beginning of the video. Of course, there is the Capture and Apprehend type missions. This is probably going to be more geared towards the Abites, but which is essentially like the Warhammer 40k version of Judge Dredd, or Cops, if you will. Yeah, more leaning more towards Judge Dredd. But either ways, yeah, there's going to be times where you're going to have to maybe apprehend an HVT. That would definitely be something probably that'd be useful if you were facing off against the Imperium or facing off against the Eldar or the Tau or something along those lines. And this would be done with probably in a war scenario, would be done with some type of special forces team. So maybe your players are playing a group of commandos and they need to apprehend a Tau Ethereal. Just a good example, I feel. Of course, there's also the steal and collect type missions where you might be stealing intelligence or stealing information, or you're just collecting intelligence or information. Maybe you're informed that there is some kind of specialized information that might help you defeat the enemy or help your force defeat the enemy or even collect intelligence information on the enemy, and that you have to go to a certain point and you have to collect that information. Or maybe you're even hunting down for an STC. That could be an interesting thing to do. Either ways, is it really stealing if you're actually liberating? Anyway, folks, kind of wanted to do a short video today on just giving you some mission ideas that you could use within your Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory campaign and how you can kind of piece those together and how you'd use them in different ways. Now, obviously, you might use a combination of different things, such as, like I said earlier, you might assault a location and then you have to destroy something important at that location that you have assaulted. But anyway, folks, I want you all to share your thoughts down below. Is there anything that maybe you're not fully sure of that you want to question more about, to get more information, if you will? Or is there something I completely skipped? Is there, anything along those lines would definitely be highly appreciated, because we all kind of got to take time and learn from each other. Some of us have more experience as game masters than others. And I think pretty much in this kind of scenario that we all should have a voice and kind of share this information about, so that way everybody can kind of learn from each other. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up today's video at that. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.